So first I'd like to acknowledge that we are visitors here on this land and pay my respects to the Wurundjeri people and to all Aboriginal, First Nations, Torres Strait and Maori people present. My name is Maureen Bezanson. This is Margie Pembroke. My hair color is the same as when I was a girl, and Margie is not grey.
Not at all.
Now this presentation is going to use the analogy of family dynamics, children growing, learning, and maturing to describe the relationship between systems librarians, vendors, and internal partners of the institution. But we'll start with a bit of information about Southern Cross.
So Southern Cross is a multi-campus regional university on the east coast of Australia. We have 3 campuses located at Coffs Harbour, Lismore and the Gold Coast, and it stretches across 300 kilometres of the east coast of Australia. From the forest to the sea, we say. The academic structure of the university is built upon 4 faculties. We've got business, law and arts, science and engineering, health and education. There are also teaching sites at Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, and 3 hotel schools in Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne. Our region boasts a great deal of natural beauty and ecological diversity, and our research areas reflect this. And we are also still recovering from the devastating flooding throughout the region in February and again in March. Just to give you an idea of what our campuses look like, there's the Coffs Harbour campus, Lismore campus with the library in the background, and the Gold Coast campus with the waves of Kirra Beach in the background. And yes, some staff, students, go for a surf at lunchtime. Why wouldn't you? Enough about us, let's dive into this presentation.
Okay, hands up in the room who has given birth or been with a partner when they've given birth. Okay, now most of you probably had someone else there with you. You weren't just all by yourself. There might have been a doctor, a nurse, midwife, an auntie, or partner. Very rarely are we left on our own to deliver our babies into the world. Like childbirth, it's pretty rare that systems implementations are done without any support from a vendor. Some implementations go smoothly, no epidural required. Others are a bit more like an unscheduled cesarean birth. And that is why you want to have an incredibly open and honest relationship with your vendors and regular, clear communication. Make sure you have that A-team in the operating theatre with you for if and when things go wrong. Oh, that's later. For us, project implementation success includes our regular meetings, comprehensive testing of integration points, clear delineation of responsibilities, ready access to our internal partners, and just contingency plans to resolve any last-minute challenges.
You don't understand the impact of the sleepless nights until you're living it. Sleepless nights happen with systems implementations too. On the eve of launching our Esploro profiles, the Esploro monthly release came out. It had a bug in it. All the profiles disappeared, which meant we had nothing to launch. Fortunately, because of our previous established relationship with the vendor, we were able to scream like a baby, and the vendor came to our rescue, and everything was live again within probably 2 hours. So that was a pretty good response.
One of the things that happens as a new parent is trying to keep track of things. Which side did she feed from last? Did I put cream on the last time I changed him? What time did I last use Bonjela? I think there's apps for that now.
System launches can also result in a bit of baby brain. How can you ensure success when you can't manage your own thoughts in the demanding environment of a new system implementation? Did we report this hinky issue yet? What about that enhancement request? Has that gone through? Have you asked our colleagues what they did in this scenario? For our Esploro implementation, our baby brain was lessened with the use of MS Teams channel to just keep track of all the things that we had to do and any suggestions that we had. Keeping our thoughts on track ensured we were able to communicate effectively and efficiently with the vendor, and as anyone who has answered A question from a frantic student in a library knows it's a lot easier if they know what they want. So we use Teams to let ourselves know what we wanted.
But children, like systems, grow up. And how do you get that happy, cooperative toddler? Anyone? No, yeah. How do you know you're doing the right thing? And how do you get the most out of your systems? New parents have challenges, perhaps maybe getting advice about their toddler's rash. Yes, your neighbors tell you one thing, your coworkers tell you another. That Facebook group you've joined has plenty of opinions. Maybe your mother-in-law has something to say. When's it time to actually go and talk to the nurse or the doctor about it? With new systems, again, you've got your peer support advice and the expert advice. We recently did the rapid ILL implementation at Southern Cross, and the documentation, instructions were actually fantastic, but it was the gotchas from our colleagues at different institutions that helped us really know what to watch out for.
But they're a toddler. Let them be a kid. Give them creative license to explore the world around them. At the same time, they still need guidance, and you find yourself saying things you never thought you would. Please don't eat the paint. Don't stick your finger up your brother's nose. Put your clothes on before we go outside. When your sister is farting, please do not put your head anywhere near her butt. Things that make you cringe to hear when you're working with systems. That's expected behaviour, not a bug.
Great suggestion. It's been passed on to our product development team. Keep an eye on the release notes to see if we implement it.
I'm sorry, that's not currently on our roadmap.
Please submit this to the Ideas Exchange.
There is no sandbox development environment. Just try it in live.
Children don't come with a manual. Like horses and water, you can lead them to the sandbox, but you can't force them to play. And in systems, even when there is a development environment, there are times when there's a scenario that you've found in the live environment that can't be replicated exactly in the sandbox. For example, we wanted to move the ORCID authorization tokens that we'd collected using an in-house API to our Esploro system. The database we collected these tokens in was production only. It was not in the sandbox. So these tokens didn't exist and couldn't exist in our sandbox environment. Well, we could test the ORCID integration in the live environment, in the sandbox environment. We couldn't test moving of the authorization tokens. We're still waiting, but actually, as of yesterday we got an email of something else we can do to test. So I wanted to say we were resolved this issue, but we've been working closely with the vendors and might have resolved it.
Is there such a thing as a perfect child or a perfect system? If a system was perfect, what room for improvement is there? And there is always room for improvement. Each institution will want different things from a system, so there needs to be flexibility, and that is developed through conversations with the vendors. Even within an institution, our business needs and practices change over time, so we need the flexibility to adapt our systems to the ever-changing environment we work in.
Definitely not all children are perfect. And what do you do with that screaming child? Do you wait for the tantrum to die its natural death, or are mitigating factors required? As a customer, there is a danger of screaming a bit too loud. Any vendors in the room? Sorry if we've screamed at you. We need to balance making our voices heard versus crying wolf. We discovered that there was a problem with our readings links, and they weren't redirecting to the item. Instead, they were going to the readings homepage. We thought the problem was with the vendor, and we were very vocal in our accusations. Turned out it was a case of misdirected blame. To compensate for the removal of a custom URL, our internal team had accidentally added 2 redirects instead of 1, and the issue was completely our fault. Definitely cried wolf. But there's other situations where it's a case of spare the rod, spoil the child. If you don't tell the vendor what you need from them and what you expect, you are going to have a difficult relationship. Our priorities don't always align with the vendor's roadmap, but when the wider community voice speaks out, with some prompting on listservs, we can make our voices heard. The ORCID integration we were talking about with Esploro was actually brought forward by 6 months when the collected voice made our priorities known.
Kids don't always do what they're told. They jump in puddles, draw on walls, eat mud. You can ask them to stop, or you can just do the laundry. We'd invested considerable time into a move to hosted easy proxy and analytics, and we're expecting to get additional data on usage. And we're looking forward to seeing this, especially across some of the law platforms. Unfortunately, at the same time, several vendors, who shall remain nameless, have changed their authentication options, and we've been forced to change from easy proxy to single sign-on. Pretty sure that analytics won't be as granular as we'd hoped, and they definitely won't be benchmarked against other platforms. Sometimes the vendors make decisions that where you're just not given a choice. Any Primo customers will be familiar with the love-hate relationship with the Central Discovery Index and the trials and tribulations with the upcoming data centre migration. What can you do about it? Sometimes you've just got to run around with wet socks, but socks can be dried.
As a parent, it's important to guide our children to develop healthy relationships with a positive sense of self. We want them to maintain their own identity amidst the peer pressure and external influences they're facing. Vendor acquisition can impact our systems. We had trepidations about the ProQuest acquisition of Ex Libris. Sure, we weren't the only ones. Before long, Clarivate bought ProQuest. It's hard to predict what sort of impact these acquisitions are going to have on our systems. Sometimes good. The development of Rialto Marketplace, streamlining acquisitions, definite upside. And one would expect similar benefits with Clarivate and Ex Libris' Esploro. We're still waiting to see if they end up as besties. We can see potential for huge benefits between the Clarivate Insights data and the Esploro research assets.
Teenagers will go through tough times, and some even run away from home. As parents, sometimes you need to tough it out and wait for change. Same with systems. Earlier, we mentioned a tantrum we threw that turned out to be our fault. There's more to that story. We had seriously considered changing platforms with the vendor, as the vendor didn't seem interested in our needs or solving any of our problems, even if we'd made them ourselves. However, several conversations later have resulted in a renewed relationship, including broader access to premium components of the system. Our bags were packed, but we didn't need to run away.
And there are the interesting choices. What can you do? What can you say? We've seen vendors going different directions because of clients' needs. The American customer base, very different than what we see here. Recently, we've been questioning some of the choices Ex Libris was making in the development of Esploro's projects and activities. Thought we could see where they're going, but we really couldn't tell as it was described on the roadmap. So we asked that question loudly, but with constructive, positive intent on the listservs, and after that spun a little bit, they actually arranged user group meetings to discuss those particular components and what their plans were for that. Meant that we came out with a much clearer idea of what they were planning and how it was going to all roll out. And also decided to just take a step back before jumping in with this particular feature. Want to see what those tattoos and piercings look like before committing.
One day, our kids will grow up and leave home. All we can do is build on the groundwork of our relationship and make sure they know that we're always here for them. They still call us when needed, and the Sunday roast is still on the table. The hard work building a relationship with a vendor means that you'll be able to call them when needed, and they might even reach out to you. At SDU, being an early adopter of Ex Libris' Esploro meant we weren't just on the cutting edge, we were on the bleeding edge. The upside of that is we were asked for input about new features, we were heard on our opinions, respected, and we continued to be able to contribute to product development direction. Even with established systems, constructive input and sensible suggestions often lead to real change. We've seen this with SpringShare enhancements Although it did take some time, we suggested a change to the booking period before appointments with librarians. The suggestion was eventually implemented, resulting in an improved user experience for our students and the librarians taking the appointments.
Even though we love our family, sometimes they do bring out the worst in us. But it's family, we have to cut them some slack, and often working together brings out the best in us all. It's similar to our relationships with other departments in our institution. We don't get to choose them, but we do have to work with them. Sometimes it's the helping each other out when we stumble, even if we might want to kick them while they're down. Recently at SCU, we were talking about changing from a hosted easy proxy authentication to single sign-on. The configuration for this involves coordination with all of our family members, our vendors, our technical services, and sometimes even our users. To get these changes, we needed to be assertive enough to point out errors in judgment, but diplomatic enough to keep friends for when we need them, because we will need them to come to our rescue down the track. It does go both ways. Extended families raise even more issues. Those cousins talk with the funny accent and don't get your sense of humor. Well, there are cultural nuances that we found when working with vendors in America versus the United Kingdom versus Israel. American vendors are effusively eager to keep everything awesome. I can do that because I'm Canadian. But the United Kingdom vendors are
so terribly polite.
yeah, and sometimes slightly horrified by our sense of humor. The Israeli vendors are all business. No time for small talk and certainly no time for jokes. All are incredibly accommodating about our time zone, time differences. But how do we deal with the differences and how do we make sure to continue to have constructive communication?
Usually in my blunt, irreverent and somewhat frivolous manner. There are misunderstandings, like the time my colleague accidentally replied all to with the simple words, WTF?
Oops. We are all different, but we find a way to get there by working together.
As you grow up, when is the right time to leave home? Are you ready to go and find your way in the world? We outgrow our systems like we outgrow our welcome at home. My mother moved out on me and sold the family home. Sometimes you don't get a choice. For example, systems get old and sometimes you have no choice but to upgrade or change platforms. Think of the changes in browsers and search engines, so i.e. Netscape. Anyone remember Alta Vista? You're all, yo. Safe to say today's options are an improvement. Similarly, there will be integrations that stop working or have new and improved features. We recently moved from the soon-to-be deprecated ClickView LTI 1.1 in Blackboard to LTI 1.3. We didn't have to move out, but we did upgrade our furniture. There may also be services that you leave but keep the good parts of. For example, Southern Cross left a consortia but stayed with the system that consortia was using. This gave us independence to configure the system the way we wanted without having to negotiate with other consortium members or pay for someone else to do the development work. Plus, we have a prodigal son. Over 10 years ago, we trialled SpringShare's LibChat, but decided it wasn't for us. In late 2017, we came back to LibChat and LibAnswers and implemented the chat service we're still using today. By the way, this chat service saved our bacon during the transition to Primo VE, as we were able to help our students at their point of need when links weren't working. So we just send them the link straight through chat.
But there are times when you need a clean break, when the division of assets needs to be talked about, the custody discussions. Have you made sure to have the tough conversations first to make sure the relationship can't be saved? We talked earlier about the examples with the vendor where we chose to stay after multiple conversations about boundaries and expectations. But we've also experienced the breakup. Discussions aren't always fruitful. Maybe the other party isn't even coming to the table. Sometimes your suggestions to improve the system are just flat out ignored, and you're left with something that is no longer fit for purpose. We're always wanting to hang on in our industry, sometimes a little too much. But in the meantime, there's other systems being developed, showing promise and leveraging off the current technologies. Change does come with its own challenge. However, regular evaluation of the systems, in the same way we would regularly review our business processes, means that we are aware of current trends and what our options are. Armed with this knowledge, we can make the right decisions and keep vendors accountable to stay up to date with the evolving business needs. We have the confidence to know when it is time to go.
Enough with the doom and gloom, Maureen. Yes, families can sometimes be difficult to navigate, but then there are family reunions that are an absolute riot, a bit like conference drinks. The relationship we've built with our vendors in internal departments and colleagues at other institutions are the cornerstone of successful implementations and provide a means to get the most out of our systems. So join those user groups, the listservs, reach out to colleagues, ask the tough questions, but not right now.
Thank you. Thank you, Margie. Thank you, Maureen. We do have one question for you. Bit of a provocation, but I think now, no, excellent, excellent. So how much is the global takeover of companies impacting support? Is a local support office a solution?
Obviously we're talking about Ex Libris, Clarivate, ProQuest, etc. I think with the North American side of the industry getting chat support, real-time support, I would like to think it's only a matter of time before the same thing happens down here. And I think that will be up to the customers to push for that in the same way that we've pushed for any other changes. Yeah.
Oh, we have one more. This is a nice one. When you choose a system, is the relationship with the vendor the most important consideration, or otherwise, where does it fit in?
I would say that the relationship with the vendor when you're choosing a system needs to be balanced with the relationship that your other colleagues have with the vendor, because you're dealing with the salesperson at that point, and you need to have a broader picture of what you're going to have past the sales, past the implementation, in this optimization phase that we're talking about. So yes, the relationship with the vendor is important, but just remember that the wining and dining you're getting at the sales phase is different.
Very different.
I think we're all familiar with the wining and dining phase. And that concludes our questions. So please join me in giving Maureen and Margie a hand again.